Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Star Citizen's persistent universe currently lacks any form of meaningful progression, with a reset of items and currency, Alpha UBC, both earned in-game, currently reset with at least every major patch, so every 3 months, and some minor ones in between. However, there has been talk of no more resets and true persistence coming at an undefined time. But what does this actually mean? And when are we likely to get more players in a server? What is going on? Let's start with a clip of Chris Roberts and what he said recently on a CIG Star Citizen official show, Pillar Talk.
Once the persistence and the server meshing is in place, that's the last piece of the tech. Yeah. And once the persistence is in there, we're going to stop wiping accounts, and so people can actually be playing, earning towards something, accumulating wealth, accumulating items and ships.
So what was Chris Roberts talking about there? Server-side object container streaming and full persistence are two major parts of the server and networking side of Star Citizen. These have been revealed as being reliant on each other and will be released at the same time, it seems. This is because server-side object container streaming standbys areas of the server where there are no players and only activates them when there are players in an appropriate range. It makes sense that the server also needs to know the state of the entities and what was there that it puts in standby and then saves them. That's the full persistence part, so then it can reload them later. Once server-side object container streaming and full persistence are working in the live branch, it has then been suggested that at least around that time, they can stop resetting progress. They sort of refer to this as true persistence a few times, but basically, progression will then matter. So when are we going to see server caps rise? Are we going to see that when this is added? We could certainly see small increases of player caps in servers with optimizations and the server-side object container streaming. I'm thinking potentially 75, 100, maybe 200 players in a server for testing, best case just with that tech. So server-side object container streaming and full persistence is also a prerequisite of server meshing, which will roll out in 2 stages, static and dynamic. Static server meshing means that predefined areas of space and cities or planets or areas are run by their own server and players, but it's a set server. They are predefined. Players and NPCs can then freely move seamlessly between those servers. And dynamic server meshing then allows for any object container to be run as a server on demand. This can be a single room, a ship, a whole system, and this is all going to be based on population. So they dynamically run up and spin up and dynamically turn themselves off. Both stages should see server player caps rise potentially significantly, as this is what the features kind of are focused on. The multiplayer aspect of the game, getting players in, single shard potentially, that sort of stuff. But how realistic is that? How realistic is it to have everyone on a single server? Well, we just don't really know. There are many other optimizations for servers that are required to get them in the most efficient state possible for as many players as possible on a single server, because that's the bottleneck. A single room, how many players can you get in a single room with a single server running it? That is what CIG are working towards, the sort of goal of getting as many players as possible into a server, and then as many players as possible into a single shard, into how many servers can we all get here, how suitable is that for everyone in the world to play in. A number that we literally don't know yet, basically. They mentioned thousands and no longer being part of an island universe once server meshing is in, though, and they're going to keep on refining and evolving that tech.
Ships just inherently are expensive. They have to be for the economics to work. But that means it's a fair amount of earning money in the game, which is always problematic when we reset.
You can only save up for a couple of months, and then we reset things. It's very difficult to save up.
And to be clear, that will be fixed. Server-side OCS, when that is working, then you'll have true persistence. To have server OCS, we have to have true persistence in the game, because the server has to know exactly the state when it throws it out of memory, and then it restores from that state. So once we're persisting the state of the universe to a database, when things are going on a server, that means we have true persistence. Probably around about that point of time is where we'll stop resetting everyone's database so people can earn money towards accumulating ships and everything else.
So there's a lot of stuff we don't know. In fact, about server meshing, we don't know how the actual tech will come together in regard to what it will actually afford. Will there be too much latency across regions, meaning that they require to region lock the game, or have individual sort of like regions that you'd have to pick, and maybe you could migrate between them and everything. And obviously they'd probably share information to like the God server, which would then go, well, you're doing these missions or affecting the economy and that sort of stuff still. So you would have still an effect on the game on everyone. How many players will it be able to be in a battle or a room together? What if some tech doesn't work as intended? What if it can't do what they want it to do? Well, in that case, CIG are likely to do the process of, if it doesn't work how they envisioned it for a part of the tech, they'll use the next best option or evolve something else. If they can't have everyone in the same sort of like shard in a single server altogether, then maybe they'll have multiple servers on top of each area sort of thing. So you couldn't see everyone, but players would then migrate to a friend or relevant players' servers as they move around the game. And relevant players might be someone that you're bounty hunting. They might be someone that's hunting you. They might be a org that you're at war with. That sort of stuff might be a relevant player. Someone that you're likely to have conflict with or ally with or whatever. Another solution could just be, if there's too many players on a server or going to a certain area, they could artificially restrict access points, so like jump points, landing zones and areas of space. They could have warp storms or close areas off with trains being delayed, or using the economy to charge a lot more for landing, refuel and repair, taxing commodities in those areas. Even charging more for habs and hangar space there and that sort of thing could then push players out to other areas. So there's lots of artificial and economy things they can do with that, and I suspect they will look at a bit of everything. So when might we see some of this tech coming in? Well, recently from the monthly report, they said work was complete towards server-side object container streaming, OCS. Several bugs discovered during the testing were addressed. They also completed general systems work, which including adding support for authoritative and non-authoritative entity component updates and the first implementation of server-side object container streaming. So it appears that server-side object container streaming is in testing at some level in Star Citizen's development branch. Chris also said on Pillar Talk that they're working on all of this at the moment. So obviously some of these, like the server-side object container streaming and full persistence, they are steps towards server meshing. But it's a big development effort. There's a lot of code that needs to get adjusted to work with the new paradigm. They need to have the data sensibly saved and classified in the way that it's saved and exactly how it all sort of like links together so that it can be efficiently and streamlined so that when it's handed off to another server, it doesn't cause problems and they're not trying to save too much data. Obviously, a huge amount of the server optimizations they are doing are literally just streamlining and optimizing and getting that code as efficient as possible for the best possible results for as many players as possible. In fact, in Star Citizen currently, the gameplay area is too big for the current server tech without server-side object container streaming anyway. There is a lot of new expansive gameplay area currently planned for Alpha 3.8 and 3.9 with Microtech and Crusader, as well as their associated landing zones, New Babbage and Horizon. It is not then unreasonable to assume that there are plans for object container streaming and full persistence in or before Alpha 3.8, which would be at the end of 2019, or other server optimizations that allow for that increased area, or a delay in the addition of that gameplay area. So those are basically the three major things that could be there. And I suspect that they are, especially with what they've been talking about in the monthly report and what Chris was talking about in Pillar Talk, moving towards getting server object container streaming and full persistence in as early as possible, and hopefully that will be by the end of 2019. The next step is then server meshing, both static and the endgame fully dynamic server meshing. Again, that's a massive task and it's going to take a good few quarters before that's even in early testing. We're not there this year and we're probably not going to be there next year. Maybe if they get everything ready and sorted, we could see it towards the end of 2020. That's just my optimistic expectation or optimistic possibility, should I say. So will true persistence really mean no more resets? That's what Chris basically implied, but I wouldn't count on it. Not until they are using UEC over Alpha UEC, and we can see that reflected on the website as well as in-game. So when you're gaining UEC, that literally goes onto your account by doing missions in-game and trades and that sort of stuff. then I suspect there's not going to be any more resets. I mean, once they've got full persistence, it may well mean they're not going to see any resets until they've actually moving over to UEC, to the proper currency for the game. Also, if they do need to reset for any reason, then they still will. It's alpha. The big ones I can see would be when they move from alpha to something more like a beta and then to a release build, or if they need to migrate databases to a new system or model. That's the sort of like likely reasons they may need to reset in the future. But it did sound like Chris was planning, if possible, to not have resets. So I'm not 100% ruling out that CIG might just say, when this tech's in and working, they're moving over to UEC straight away, but I'm not expecting that to be the case. In the much shorter term with Alpha 3.6 and in the next few quarters, there are various network updates that are incredibly important as well. The servers are currently client authoritative, so the server doesn't know where the player is or what they've done until it's actually being sent to the server. So this can have a lot of issues with players lagging around, rubber banding. Players can be hit when they're like convincingly behind cover because they're in a different position or were running behind the cover at the time on someone else's view because of lag. The client-to-server actor networking rework in 3.6 makes the server authoritative, so it's in charge in regard to saying where the player is and what they're doing. If a client is lagging, their experience is degraded rather than every other player around them, if you see what I mean. The server's saying, this is where you are. If you're lagging or whatever, you might be teleporting on your screen, but you're not teleporting around on everyone else's screen. It's much better for everyone else and for multiplayer games in general. There is currently an artificial 250 millisecond delay introduced into the game as well, to allow for smoothness of network code and animations and to get client and server positional data for players and NPCs, but this is going to be massively reduced to a single frame or two with the server to client actor networking rework, which is the opposite, client to server, server to client, you see what I mean? It's currently planned for Alpha 3.9, Q1 of 2020. This is going to further help to reduce perceived lag and instances of rubber banding, as well as streamlining a huge amount of the code. Another 3.6 server optimization that we do know about as well is the cleaning up of the code in general to better handle infinite loading screens, server crashes, and client crashes, and help these issues not happen in the future. This is known as the asynchronous disconnection refactor. It is unlikely that any of those features by themselves will increase server caps, but they are important steps towards server-side object container streaming, full persistence, and server meshing, which are obviously much more focused at trying to increase player server caps, as well as expanding out the gameplay area. But those improvements coming in the shorter term will certainly improve player gameplay experience at the very least. I am interested to know your thoughts. When do you think we might see server-side object container streaming and full persistence with 3.8, like I think, or later? Do you think that we will have massive server cap rises when we have static server meshing, or will we be waiting a little bit longer to get lots and lots and lots of players in, and maybe it will just be a few hundred with static server meshing? Whatever your opinions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Every month we have a ship giveaway. For June, we have an Origin 890 Jump, the massive luxury ship that is a huge sort of like capital luxury ship. It's been donated by Odyssey Interstellar, a friendly industrial expansionist organization in Star Citizen that focus on mining, trading, industry, exploration, research, and infrastructure. In short, commerce is their goal. They run regular weekly events in-game now. Please check them out if you are looking for an org to join. Links down below. There are a couple of services I shield for as well that you might find useful. If you're looking for a VPN, then check out NordVPN. I use it for security, privacy, and more. It has massive advantages over free VPNs. And if you use the code BoredGamer, you get up to 75% off your subscription. Boom! Also, there is Shadow Cloud Gaming. This is an alternative to having your own or upgrading your gaming rig on PC. It leverages the power of the internet and your own Shadow server that emulates a high-spec Windows 10 PC, so you can play up to 144Hz 4K anywhere with an old PC, laptop, smartphone, or even tablet. Freedom to play anywhere. The internet is good enough anyway, and it works really well with Star Citizen and all the games that I play, and is constantly updated and even improved with new hardware. Again, use the code BoredGamer for discount, links below to all of that jazz. Thank you to all that support the channel through Patreon, the YouTube join button, donation, subscribe star, as well as anyone that just generally subscribes, likes, comments, and shares my content. Dings that bell, ding ding. If you feel so inclined, you can find links to all of that down below. A special thank you, though, to my VIP producers this month, Dalamars, Catastros, Raz, Gear Khan, General Aventador, Robert Johnson, and Andy Green, who have given well beyond the norm in support for the channel. I know a load of other people have, but I can't name them all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.